Welcome, everyone. Hello. My name is Christina Robinson, and I am a partnerships account manager here at Women Who Code. I'm really excited to be joining you all for today's session, which is titled How to Get Out of Tutorial Hell and Build Something. Please help me welcome our amazing speaker, Claudia Maciel. Claudia is an iOS engineer at Jack Henry, using her background as a co-site director for the NASA STEM and Coder Dojo K-12 program and as an airline pilot. Claudia has used her unique path to help her develop an often quirky but effective way to problem solve and teach others. Claudia's journey has been fueled by an unrelenting passion for empowering people and sharing what she has learned. Since 2013, Claudia has built and trained others how to develop mobile web applications, which can be found in the App Store as Yarnventory, and there's also a new one coming soon. When Claudia isn't speaking, teaching, or working, she enjoys flying airplanes with her family, reading a good mystery or suspense novel. So I can say it's no mystery that we're in for a good talk today. We're really excited to have you, Claudia. Thank you so much for being here, and I will now pass the session on to you.
Hi, thanks, Christina, and welcome, everybody. Welcome to How to Get Out of Tutorial Hell and Build Something. So let's get started. During today's presentation, I will be doing a quick introduction, adding a little bit more about who I am, a brief description on what tutorial hell is in case you've never heard about it, how you could find yourself in it, some common ways that you can get out of it, and then finally, I will walk you through the steps that I took when I realized that I was in tutorial hell. So a little bit more about me. So like Christina said, I work as an iOS engineer at Jack Henry. Previously, I worked as an airline pilot for SkyWest Airlines. I'm a mother of two teenage boys. I live in Northern California. I love to read, crochet. That's why I have a Yarnventory app. Watch TV, sleep when I can get it, and play video games. And that's a picture of me when I finally took a real vacation. And by real vacation, I mean no work of any kind, just relax. It was nice. I would recommend everybody take a real vacation at some point. I mean a real vacation, you know. So what is tutorial hell? So I think the best way to describe what tutorial hell is to kind of walk you through a scenario. Maybe you've been there, or maybe you currently are there. I know I've been there, and I've been there multiple times. So when I was starting out, I wanted to learn as much as I could about the language I was learning. For me, it was Swift, but this can easily apply to Kotlin, JavaScript, React, Ruby, I mean, any programming language. So you know how it goes. You want to learn a programming language, you open up Google and you type in how to learn Swift, how to learn JavaScript, and then you get this humongous list of tutorials and courses and boot camps. So you pick one and you go to town, right? And then you finish it and you feel like you're ready to just build something and to build the project, right? I mean, I know I did. So what happens next? You open up your laptop, you open up your editor, and then you just stare at it. Your mind just goes blank. You're lost. You don't know what to do. So you just get up from your computer if you manage to make it to your desk at all. Because me, what I tend to do is I tend to procrastinate at this part of the stage. Either I will find something else to do, like wash dishes, which I hate to do. That's when you know I'm procrastinating, is because I'll be in the kitchen washing dishes, or I'll be doing the laundry. There's so many things going on inside of us at this moment in time. So let's kind of go through them a little bit. So in tutorials, instructors make everything look easy, and that's because they take the time to lay everything out. They do all the debugging ahead of time. They've solved all the errors. They kind of do all the planning for us ahead of time. They lay out all the components step by step. Or maybe you're like me and you just follow along and you don't really take the time to learn why things are done the way they are. You just take it for what it is and you don't, you know, choose to question anything. The other thing is technology is constantly changing and we trick ourselves into thinking that we have to learn it all, you know? So we stay in this tutorial loop, just doing tutorial after tutorial, course after course, workshop after workshop. You get my point, right? I mean, don't have to stress it. So I realized that I was in that constant learning mode. I realized that I wanted to learn it all, but there's no way that any of us can learn it all. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to build something, right? I'm going to get myself out of this tutorial loop. And little did I know that I was going to get stuck in a second kind of tutorial loop hell. And that happened because I was going to start building a project. And the project that I was going to build, I needed to learn core data. Well, I found a tutorial to teach me core data. And when I finished that project, Swift UI got introduced. So I was like, oh, that's pretty neat. Let me go ahead and learn Swift UI. Oh, well, I could use Swift UI with core data. Let me find a tutorial where I can now learn Swift UI with core data. And you see how that goes? Yeah, I was going to build a project. That project never, ever happened. It was a constant skill learning. So, yeah, this tutorial loop hell is real. So, why is it so easy to get stuck here? And I think there's three main reasons why it's so easy to get stuck here. Um, and the first reason, and this is a good reason, we want to feel productive, and we are. We're doing something. We're learning. We're taking steps toward our goal of becoming software engineers. Um, And the second one, and we've all fought against it, you might be fighting against it at this moment, is imposter syndrome. Um, we want to keep learning. We feel like we're always having to learn, and we do. We have to learn. We just need to know how to learn and when to learn and when to build. And then the last one, and this is the worst part about tutorials, is that in a tutorial, we follow those tested paths with controlled mistakes and with no bugs or bugs that are chosen for us, where they already know how they're going to solve them. And this is not how the real software development world works. Um, if you are a part of that, if you've been a part of that software development world, you know how it is. It is a constant struggle, and there's endless bugs. Those bugs you can't choose your bugs. The bugs choose you, basically. So, how do I get out of it? Now that you know what it is, and if you're in it or you've been in it, if you ever fall into it again, is like, how do I get out of it? It's scary. It's scary to build your own projects, to, get out of that hand holding of tutorials. So what I've done is I've kind of compiled a list of what I found have worked for other people. And I'm going to go ahead and share that list with you. And then after I go through that list, I'll go ahead and share the process that helped me and helped me put my app out on the App Store. So the first one is to contribute to open source. And I wanted to talk about this one first because it's probably the one that is the most related to an actual work environment without having to be in an actual company. But to me personally, when I was first starting out and somebody mentioned go contribute to open source, man, my palms would get so sweaty. My heart would just race so fast. And look, my palms are just like so sweaty right now, just thinking about it. I would get pretty close to anxiety as I could get just thinking about it. I was like, how do you expect me, a beginner, to go and put code out there for experienced developers to critique? Yeah, no, there's no way. But don't get me wrong, it works. It really does work. And I know people who are beginners and intermediate developers who swear by open source. You just have to be braver than I was. And I know a lot of you are. So go for it. Go out there and contribute to open source. Be braver than me. And the reason it works is because you are not creating a project from scratch. You are taking an existing project and you are just either making a small change to it, you're adding maybe a small feature, you're working with other developers, and then you're getting experience. And when you get that first pull request approved, it's probably, one of the greatest feelings you'll ever experience. Just don't expect that your very first PR will be accepted right out the bat. You're probably going to have to work on it a couple times, make several changes to it. And then the open source community really is a great community. The people there are great. If it's a actual open project where people are constantly working on it, there's forums and you can ask questions. And once you make that first contribution to it, you can put that on your resume and you have something to talk about on interviews. So it really is a great way to contribute and get your skills up and get out of tutorial hell because you're going to build your confidence. Just remember to not bite more than you can chew. Aim to do what you know, or maybe just a tiny bit more, because you can learn. You can always learn more than what you know, and it'll be great. The next thing you can do is you can get an internship or an apprenticeship. A lot of companies call them either or. When you're starting out, you're not exactly trained to be a real programmer, but you could always start at a company as an intern. I know that with Jack Henry, usually right before summertime, they open up intern positions, and a lot of other companies do as well. You're going to work on a real project with a pair of developers. You're going to get all that experience. And you're going to get to work on all your skills from basically zero. The only thing about internships is they don't pay very well, or at all. It depends on the company. But if you can do it for the experience and not worry about the money part of it, then go for it. The experience is amazing. We've all heard this, right? Maybe somebody has said it to you. Maybe you said it to somebody else. It's part of the title of my talk. Build something. Just build something. However, there are so many problems with the statement of just build something. And the biggest problem is, well, what do I build? And it's hard. Like, what do I build? There's so many ideas, or maybe your idea is already taken. Well, kind of lost my train of thought there for a minute. Sorry. You can always, yeah. Well, let's just say, let's go with the fact that maybe you already have an idea, right? Maybe that's why you started learning. You started learning the code because you have an idea of what you wanted to build. And that's great. If that's why you started to learn the code because you know what you wanted to build, then that's great. Just keep in mind that maybe what you want to build, you didn't learn everything from the first couple tutorials or courses that you learned. And if that's the case, then you're going to have to learn the rest of the skills somehow, whether it be from the docs, other tutorials. Just be careful that you don't get stuck in that tutorial loop hell, on the internet, from friends. Just when you start building that project, make sure that you build to what you're confident in. Tailor it to what you know. But what if you don't have an idea, right? A lot of us don't. We kind of go into software engineering to learn a skill to get a job, but then we want to build something for our resume, for our portfolio. If that's the case, we can take an existing website or an app and we can break it down into smaller, manageable pieces. So take this screenshot of Facebook. Let's say that we wanted to make a Facebook clone, right? It looks intimidating at first. Well, I want you to take some time and maybe throw into the chat how you would break this down into smaller chunks. How would you break down Facebook? Like, what do you see that you could break down into smaller chunks? And then I'll give you some time and then we'll kind of walk through it together. Might make sure I could see my mouse so I could point things out. Every big project starts off as little projects, and that's what I want you to remember. Navbar, yep, that's one part of it. By different components, I mean like there's repeatable things inside of Facebook, at least this part of Facebook, that can be reused. Like the images, they're all circles, and I'll talk about it a little bit more. The post section, the header, the menu on the left, the stories, the ads section. Yep, those are all good. Post a message route. Yeah, so the thing I'm trying to get here is that when you break down a website, because we're going to talk about a website here, or an app, it doesn't seem so intimidating anymore. And then it's easier to build something. So going through the website here, starting off with the navigation bar, like somebody mentioned, we have the Facebook logo, and then we have the search bar. And then if you look down here at the post, we have a profile picture, and then where you can start chatting. It's the exact same thing. So once you build one, you can just reuse it again. And the same thing goes for the navigation on the left side. It's a image with some text. It's an image with some text. And then it just repeats with the see more. And then it's the exact same thing down here with just a title that says your shortcuts. So once you build one, all you got to do is add a title and then it repeats. But guess what? It repeats again over here with the context. Just a different title, but it's the exact same layout. It's an image with some text. So, and then they reuse it up here, a title, circle image with some text. And they reuse it again. Your pages and profiles is the title, circle, more text, and then they just went and shrunk it up a little bit more and reused it again. And then sneaky Facebook people, guess what they did? They did it again, but instead of using circles, they just made the pictures a little bit bigger, made them squared. But if you really take a look, they kind of did the same thing where they use the text right in the middle. The text is right in the middle, the same distance from the image. But because they had more space, they were able to add a subtitle underneath. And yeah, picture, text with the title on the top. So yeah, they just kind of reused the one thing that they built out for the left navigation bar, and then they just used it all over the left side, all over the right side. And then for the middle part, they did change it up a little bit, but not much because they used pictures, text, same font, same color, and then that same circular image, and then it scrolls horizontally. And then right here in the middle for their live video, photo video, again, circle image and more text. So what I want you to get from this, from the build something, is that if you don't have an idea about building something, is just take maybe your favorite app if you're a mobile developer, or a website if you're a web developer, and just rebuild it. And when it looks intimidating, like Facebook does, when I first opened it up, it's like, whoa, I can't build Facebook. Yes, you can, because it just repeating items all over the whole entire page. So once you build that circle with text next to it, you pretty much got your Facebook page built out for you. You just got to lay it out all over the entire website, different sizes with different text. You just got to sit there and look at it for a little while and break it down into smaller chunks. And that's what programming is breaking down problems into smaller, manageable chunks. Which brings me to my next action item, is to stare at your code. And I don't mean to stare at your code like when you get confused. I mean, stare at your code thoughtfully. And to look at your code and think about it. How does your code work? What can you do to your code to make it better? If you were given a chance to rewrite it, what would you do differently? You know, when you actively think about the code, you're making connections and you're firing neurons in your brains that will eventually make you a better developer. I love this. This is probably one of the best advice I can ever give you. Teach others. Yes, self-teaching is important. No one will teach you everything you require to learn, but sometimes teaching yourself also includes teaching others. When you teach something to others, you repeat that concept in your mind, which results in a better understanding of it. If you think you are not ready to teach others, I guarantee that you're probably wrong. And the reason for that is because if you are even just one step ahead of somebody else, you are completely ready to teach them about that one step you're ahead of them. Because there is always somebody who wants to be where you are now. Think about it. Somebody wants to be where you are, and you have the experience to teach them. I'm not saying to put on a workshop or an actual class like at a college or anything crazy like that. No, no. But you can teach through a blog, you can teach through an article, you can even teach through a conference. Maybe YouTube's your thing. TikTok, maybe through your Women Who Code local chapter, through the technical track, or maybe you could just get together with people in your local area at a coffee shop, at a library. It doesn't have to be this big ordeal. I didn't believe this either, that teaching others can really help you until I became a flight instructor. My learning skyrocketed when I became a flight instructor because I had to be able to understand whatever topic it is that I was teaching at that moment in a way to help my student understand it. I had to break it down. Sometimes I had to break it down in so many different ways for them to understand it. And that helped me understand it so many times. And the same goes for coding. You have to understand it to be able to help others. So yeah, there's nothing better than teaching others, I think. So what worked for me? When I realized for like the second or third time that I was in tutorial hell, at that point, I didn't really have an app that I wanted to build. I had a couple apps in mind, but they were too advanced, I thought, for what my skills were at that time. I had just finished doing 100 Days of Swift, and I had all these little apps that Paul Hudson has you doing. So I was thinking to myself, how am I going to get myself out of this tutorial hell that I stuck myself in again? So I thought I'm just going to approach doing tutorials a little bit different. So here's what I did. Like I told you, when I was a beginner, I would just follow along all willy-nilly with the videos. They would just code and I'd code right along with them. I wouldn't think about what was going on. So I told myself, I'm not going to watch the videos until I think about what's going to happen ahead of time. So let's say, small example, that we're going to be watching a tutorial on creating a background color changer, right? So before watching the video, we want to think about what it is that we're going to be building. We want to think about the problem first. We're going to think about the project. So breaking down the steps. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to have a collection of different colors. We're going to have a button that we're going to click to change the colors. And we're going to have some kind of a function, right? That's going to pick a random color. So now we have our steps. And we're not watching the video just yet. Second part. Now, a lot of people are afraid to build something on their own because that darn imposter syndrome, right? It's always attacking us. But there's nothing wrong with at least trying some things first. So again, before you watch a video, try translating those steps that we had done in the first step into code. And this is when Google comes in. Google is our best friends as software engineers, software developers. We're going to go into Google and we're going to take our step exactly as we wrote it most of the time. And we're just going to type it in. Collection of colors followed by the language we're doing in. Collection of colors in JavaScript, or a collection of colors in Swift, collection of colors in Kotlin. And at that point, what's going to come up is probably some kind of an array. So now we have an idea of what to do. And you know what? It's okay if our answer is wrong because we did it on our own, and that's what matters. The ultimate goal is to start learning how to research, how to ask questions, to think about the problem first. So now that we thought about the projects, we have our steps, we tried a little bit on our own. Now we can start watching that tutorial. But before we watch that tutorial, well, as we're watching that tutorial, I would advise you to not watch the entire video all at once. Pause that video when you need to. Our brains can only consume so much information at once. So it's better to pause the video and kind of process what you want. Have a piece of paper or a notebook next to you, and if something is said or something is done and you have a question about it, write it down or open up, Google in a separate window and just figure out why. Why did they do something? Asking questions and researching is an important skill for becoming a successful developer. Yes, the process is going to take longer, but at the end, you're going to become such a better developer because of it. And then once you finish that video, that tutorial, and your project is complete, I want you to break it. Creating small bugs in your project is going to teach you so much. The error messages that you get, well, not just the errors, but the whole debugging process, it's going to make, you might as well just feel comfortable with it now, that getting errors and debugging them, learning how to use the debugger, because I would say about maybe 80%, if not more of your time, is going to be spent debugging your code. It's just the reality of the situation, change your code. Let's say in our array example, you're wondering why the instructor used a var instead of a let. Change it, see what happens. Did you get an error? What does the error say? Now you learned something, jot it down in your little notebook if you need to. If you really want to test yourself or just challenge yourself, rebuild your project. Choose a different style or a different method than what the instructor did. For example, if the instructor used if-else statements, change it to a switch. Or if the instructor used the simple for loop, choose a for each. Or maybe you want to add extra features or an animation, add some sound. Maybe if it was a simple page, one page application, you want to add a couple more pages and then launch it. This is exactly how I built my Yarn Inventory app. I started off doing this and then I changed it. I added my own colors. I changed it. I think it was like a tracking. I don't remember what the tutorial was tracking, but I changed it to tracking yarn. And then I added some more features. And then I liked it so much, I threw it onto the App Store. It got accepted. So I think it's still there. So yeah, it gives you confidence. It really does give you confidence to just throw your work out to share with the world. So now that you know what tutorial hell is and how it feels to be inside it, I hope that you know that you can break free of it. And if, never again. So thanks to listen to me talking about tutorial hell. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Best way is on Twitter at coder_pilot. And if you have any questions, free to answer them.
Thank you so much, Claudia, for presenting on moving on from tutorials to actually building something. This was a really amazing talk. I know there was a lot of chat going on, a lot of energy from people really responding to your talk. So thank you very much. I do want to encourage people to use Q&A feature to ask questions throughout the session and let us know what it is that you would like to know more about. As you can see here, a lot of people saying over and over again, I feel very seen. This was very impactful for me. I'm not the only one. So it was very encouraging for sure. So while everyone is sharing their questions, getting their questions together, Claudia, I'd love to get your thoughts on this and maybe get some resources from you. One of the things you shared in particular was contributing to open source. So any specific resources that you would recommend checking out, any platforms you would recommend checking out? I want to give a shout out to a fellow, Christina, who said they feel like they need a tutorial now on how to contribute to open source. I thought that was very clever.
I know there's, and I had it open earlier and then I closed it to do the presentation. I don't want to give out the name of the wrong website, but it's linked to GitHub because all the repos are on GitHub and they're tagged with beginner ready or first time ready or something like that. But if you just Google open source for beginners, there's like so many. And then there's a bunch of resources out there on people who wrote how to contribute to. And they're not tutorials. They're just instructions on how to contribute to open source.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of people keep commenting here that this has been a very encouraging and uplifting talk for them. They have found themselves in that tutorial hell cycle or loop, as you said, a lot of times. So really appreciative of that. I want to continue encouraging everybody to drop your questions here. We would love to be able to hear from Claudia. It looks like we got one here. We've heard from a lot of people today that you really should connect projects to your non-coding interest. So how did that help you?
Yeah, so my first, like I said, my Yarn Inventory app is not coding related. It's yarn related. And I built that app because every time I go to a crafting store, I buy yarn. And I'd have, like, looking down because it's underneath my table. And I realized that I have yarn that I purchased yarn that I already had. So I needed to keep track of it somehow. And that's how I came up with my idea. And my husband used to get mad at me because he's like, you already have that color yarn. Why didn't you buy it again? It's like, well, I forgot. I have so much yarn, I forgot, but it's so soft. Look, feel it. So that's why I built that app, is to keep track of what brand and colors of yarn. So yeah.
That's fantastic. As a fellow crafter, I feel seen in this moment because I too do the same thing. Yeah. So another question for you. Do you have any good resources for getting your first app into the App Store or into Google Play?
Uh, yeah, it's no longer Ray Wenderlich. It's what, Kadeco now. They have a step-by-step process on how to get your app onto the App Store, and I wish I had the link to it, but I don't, unfortunately. But you can just, again, Google not Ray Wenderlich, Kadeco steps to get your app on the App Store. Really good process. They walk you through the whole entire thing. So yeah, check them out.
Fantastic. Very good. It looks like we've got the link here in the chat, or we've got the message here. Kadeco plus steps to get your app onto the App Store. So that's
Yes.
wonderful. It looks like we've had a lot of, another person said that this was a really excellent talk. There were a lot of ideas and resources on how to get started, find something small, manageable, so that you challenge yourself. Some of us are guilty of having projects that are too big sometimes. So very encouraging to break it down. Yeah, absolutely. And other people are saying they also have a lot of wool and baskets and containers. So lots of people are connecting with you here too.
Yep.
So looks like here we have another question about open source. How do you find which open source project to contribute to? How would you narrow that down?
I would say if there's an open source project that you use,
Hmm.
try to contribute to that one first, because you're already familiar with how it works. Maybe you want to, add a feature to it. So I would say if there's an open source project that you use, try to contribute to that one first.
Awesome. Well, and our last question here for you is people wanting to reach out to you and be able to connect with you. So if you don't mind sharing your Twitter handle again, people would love to connect with you.
They put up my slide. Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, Claudia, thank you so much. This has been so much fun to be able to chat with you. Thank you to all of our community members who have shared wonderful questions and been so encouraging throughout the talk. Again, huge thank you to you, Claudia, for your time and your amazing talk, putting all your thoughts together here. I want to thank you all for being a spectacular audience. We're getting ready to go into our next session, so we would love for you to join us for that. And during the summer, be sure to utilize all of the different networking resources out there. We have amazing things happening throughout the summit, and we don't want you to miss out on anything. So I hope that you enjoy the rest of your time here at Women Who Code Summit Mobile and Web 2023. Thank you so much.